can't seem to hear anything. Can see you, just can't hear you. I don't think anyone can hear us. No, no volume. I can see you're speaking. I just can't hear you. It's not the AirPods. I don't think anyone. Can anyone else hear her? No. Okay. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, we cannot hear you.
Yeah,
We
I can
can't
hear
hear.
Dr. Simon. I just can't hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you, man. I can hear everyone other than Dinesh.
Yeah.
But
Maybe a little trip down technical difficulty lane.
Can you hear me now?
yes. No,
So basically, when I did that entire introduction, nobody heard me.
no.
Nobody heard you.
Oh no!
My family
Okay, it's
texted
okay.
me they couldn't hear.
I'll save it for the conclusion. No issue. All right. So,
Okay.
I will not reiterate. Let's meet the expert. Today's topic is health awareness in the Muslim community. First and foremost, Ramadan Mubarak, audience. I apologize for the technical difficulty. We are using a new platform, and it seemed to be working okay. But I guess there must have been some glitch or something that we just experienced. But no worries. Learning, as they say, you learn as you experience accidental issues or whatnot. I'm losing my voice now. But let's meet the expert for our topic today: mental health awareness in the Muslim community. Our experts are Adnan Munshi. He is, sorry, I'm just going to go back to my introduction for a minute. Adnan Munshi is a licensed clinical social worker and clinical psychotherapist who's been 12 years in the field. We have Dr. Saima Sindhu. She completed her PhD degree in psychology from New Jersey and started her practice as a neuropsychologist. And her therapeutic modalities include behavior therapy, personality development, therapy. Her certifications, memberships, and affiliation, who is also a licensed social worker and psychotherapist who has 6 years in the field and works with a local mosque, mashallah. So everybody who is anybody that would we would need for a conversation such as this. Why are we having this conversation? Just to summarize what I was going to say. Many in the Muslim communities, and what brought me to this topic was many experience their life and the reaction to that life in different ways. And the fact of the matter is that just like there are variety set of emotions, there's varying degrees of emotion and varying degrees that people feel them. And oftentimes as Muslims, we are told to do sabr, to do azkar, pray more and whatnot whenever we are going through some sort of emotional or mental turmoil. Now, in actuality, if one looks to the Quran, there's never a mention of the Quran to only seek out that. In fact, mental, in my study and in my research, which I will reiterate in the conclusion, I found that there are many examples, even in the Quran and in Hadith, which talk about seeking out experts to heal not only one's mind, but also one's body, but also one's mind and soul. And who are these experts? Obviously, the people of knowledge. Again, that is also from the Quran. Maybe it's good that I wasn't able to do that Arabic that I was doing so not great. But anyways, let's start with the experts. I have a few questions that I would like to start off with. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought because of what happened earlier. But what is mental health and mental illness in simple terms, and from the perspective as someone of Muslim faith? In your, a humble opinion, or not, definitely not humble, professional opinion could be it as well. Dr. Dr. Saima, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Binish, for introducing me. And also, like, as we were talking before, like at that day, the mental health is like it's some type of like a issues, some type of a problem, some type of the dizziness, some type of like a irritation. Mental health is like usually in our community it takes in a different way and different side. And if we will just realize that, like what our emotional needs are, and people I can see in my practice, people they are suffering a lot for a long time just because of the stigma. And I like to introduce myself a little bit in this way that you can understand, audience can also understand how it's a stigma, how it's like affecting their life. I did my first master's in genetics as was geneticist, and after that I did my second master in computer sciences. I was a computer scientist, but because of my stigma, my things, being a Muslim, being a Pakistani, this was a lot of issues about the mental health. I ended up to see my therapist, and it changed my life 360. And I started taking therapy. Last 18 years, I'm in this field, and I feel like that I'm working on the mental health stigma. I'm giving a lot of lectures. I'm going a lot all over the world. Why? Because I feel like that we have so much mental health stigma. And because of the mental health stigma, we are not seeking the help which is needed. And in my perspective, like if we understand what are the mental health issues and how we can treat it Islamically and also like psychologically, and when the time comes, we need to take a help. How? That's we need to talk, I think, further. How we need to help, how we need to convince, how we need to talk with the people, and how we need to be like get like a really real benefit out of that.
Excellent. Okay, very good. Thank you for that. And I'm sorry, hold on one moment. Um, Okay, yeah, I totally get like why somebody if, when you once you had a personal, effect of such an issue, you would actually not only relate, but you would understand why the stigma exists, and that's an excellent way to talk about like why illness as a Muslim. Like there is a stigma, there is a taboo to seek out mental health. In fact, like just to kind of go back as to like why I came to this conversation was in the last about 6 months this occurred. I heard many people and the different ways they were dealing with mental health, like fellow Muslims, and the kind of stuff that they not only had to deal with from their family, but also from other friends and whatnot. Like like I don't know if everybody understands this in Urdu, but like if you say I'm seeking out mental health, they'll say "Tum pagalo." Like astaghfirullah. That's the kind of reaction that they have, which means are you crazy? For Adnan, Adnan is from Bangladesh, so just for you. So this is not something that should be a situation that one has to deal with. Like you shouldn't have to not only uh, keep to yourself that you're going through a mental issue or mental duress of some sort, but also you should not be shunned for seeking out help for the same. Now, what do you think? Well, how often do you treat Muslim patients, and what kind of nuances do you deal with when treating a Muslim patient versus a non-Muslim one who doesn't have this type of stigma surrounding mental health care? Adnan, I'd like for you to chime in on this one.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for allowing me the space today. I just want to warmly welcome everyone here into the safe space. And this space is really here to for us to share and learn. I've been doing this work for about 12 years in so many different avenues, from child welfare, working with those federally incarcerated, to substance abuse addiction recovery programs, and a bunch of other things. And today I have the privilege to have my own practice and to see a lot of South Asians. So I'm coming from a lens of just from my own experiences, both personal and professional, and it's more from a psychological lens. I don't consider myself as a Islamically faith-based therapist because I'm not trained in that. So all my answers will be from the psychological lens. When I see patients, a lot of things that I see, based on the question you asked, Binish, is shame. That's a common experience that so many people, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim, come in with. So that's, I think, a huge barrier and largely stems from the stigma. That there is a lot of embarrassment sometimes of even considering help. Sometimes there's a lot of judgment. So that those are the common experiences, and it also occurs in other cultures as well. Coming from an Indian Gujarati and a Muslim background, I can understand the cultural and spiritual influences and how that shapes a person. But I think the fact that people just come in and can have that courage to step in and say, you know what, I am struggling a bit, and that's so human. I think it needs to be normalized that we're all human. We're all in this common mission together. So I think if we can kind of help the person see that this is a normal experience, just like going to the doctor, just like going to the dentist, this is just going for the mind and for the body and for the spirit, whatever we believe in, and for the heart as well. So I don't know if that completely answers your question, but that's some of my perspective on it.
Certainly. I think oftentimes what we hear is like it's a very seeking out psychotherapy or counseling or, a psychologist even is seen as a very Western solution to something that should be able to be resolved through, faith based cures. I really don't know what to call it.
Mm,
And as you mentioned, the stigma, there's a stigma certainly exists, so much so that oftentimes one finds oneself not only like shutting down that part, that's the, as they say in
mm,
Arabic, like again in my research I found these words waswase in their minds, but they also start judging themselves for not
mm,
being able to accept whatever situation that they're going through in a more sane way. And again, this does not speak to your sanity or insanity. It's just something that each individual is going through. And frankly speaking, in my humble opinion, I'm not an expert, but just as somebody who studies the human condition through her life experiences and whatnot, I think our emotions and our reaction to crises is what makes us humans
mm,
itself. I mean,
mm,
one can look at the Quran for examples of how humans react to certain situations as versus how animals react to certain situations, and the fact that we can not only react in certain emotive ways, but also have that reaction stay with us for a long time, oftentimes for people for lives, like post-traumatic stress syndrome, people going
mm,
through wars, those last for years. That makes us human. And being told that no, you have a crisis of faith if you're reacting that way, or you should look at the, I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with trying to follow the prophetic example. He was the best of all people, of course, but again, we are nauzubillah, we are not even close to his imana, and we are just trying in our respective ways, and we obviously will not be as have an as honorable reaction to crises as he did. Rahila, now I would like to talk to you about this. Talking about taboos and whatnot that exist, stigmas that that exist in the Muslim community about seeking out mental health care. In your line of work, how often, like, how do you have somebody who's going through mental duress not only accept that they are going through a mental distressful situation, but then also actually apply a cure or a solution or some sort of behavioral change? How do you get them to accept that in a society that still views mental health care as taboo? How do you get them to accept that?
Assalamualaikum everyone. Thank you for having me on. Needed, right? Yeah. It is a big challenge in the community. Just to get them accept the word mental is is still hard for them to accept that. Um, Try to tell them like, okay, it's not healthy right now. Just like a common cold, your nose is running and everything, your throat it hurts, so brain it needs help. It needs rest. It needs the attention that needs to to get stable. So I'm always trying like, what is bothering you? What is upset? It's normal to be sad, and what's causing you to come forward and get the help that you need. Um, Everybody is here. We're all professionals. We are here to support you. You know, it's a challenge for them to accept that they help. And I try to speak they understand, the wording that they understand. And
the end of the day is tools, language that they understand, and it doesn't happen in one conversation. It happens in multiple conversations till they get to the point I do need help now. That's
Excellent. So,
pretty much
one
it.
way, excellent. So one way that you reach out to them is to get them to accept is to just have multiple conversations. Like persistence is key, of course. And before I move on to the next question, there is a question from Danish Ahmed that is talking about, well, what about the consequences of not seeking out mental health care? Now that is again going back to why I wanted to have this conversation. I was this was a few months ago. I was having dinner with a friend of mine, and she told us about this friend of hers from Chicago. I'm not going to name names. And this friend of hers from Chicago was a very active on social media, had a vlog, whatnot, things like that. And one night, and to look at her from surface value, you would think this girl is like the most, happiest girl, has it all set, knows everything what's going on. And then one night she wrote on her vlog, I'm sorry. And she said, we didn't think much about it because she used to be doing, and again, these are Pakistani Muslim, South Asian Muslim women that we're talking about that are married, have, the picket fence, all of that stuff that, we're told growing up as kids that we're supposed to want. And this girl wrote on her vlog, I'm sorry. And the next, she said, we didn't think about it. My friend said, we didn't think much about it. But then the next morning, we woke up to news of her taking her own life. And when she told me that, it really hit home for me that, we, and oftentimes many of us lead these kinds of lives where we're just kind of living, as I like to call it, surface value. We're just showing a world, one window into our life that is pretty and decorated and clean. And they have no idea what's going on in, within our lives, or in deeper waters. And we withstand that surface value image for a while until, again, as I say, the bucket becomes so full that it tips over. And that is when mental duress happens, mental distress happens. And in the case of my friend's friend from Chicago, she took her own life. So I'd like to, I would like for all you guys to chime in on this. Like, how about what is something that can and will occur if one does not seek out help for their mental duress? Anybody can start this conversation. Who would like to start? I think Dr. Saima, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Actually, you answered the question very well. And you told the story of that woman, what happened with her. Because definitely she was suffering of some of the mental issues and she didn't take care of that. And the people, they try to like distract themselves with the different things and they are afraid to talk with other people. And if they will not take a help, and it's like worst come to worst, you just told the story. And that's why it's very important because it's same thing if you have a blood pressure day one you are not going to die, you will not have any type of like a cardiac issues, but as soon as with the passage of time, same thing, when you have a distress, your body is creating the hormone which is called cortisol, and it's affecting your body slow by slow by slow, and at the end the pressure cooker is just done, and then that happened what you just told me. And this is like a thing, but I was just listening that story, and that's is happening, and that story you know, but most of that stories you don't know. That was the worst thing. But the last thing is you cannot be a good mom. I'm not saying good, better, mentally healthy mom, because you will bring your own issues in your parenting. You will bring your own issues at your work. You will bring all your issues in your friendships. That's why you are not happy. And I told the people the happiness is not a part of life. Contentment is a part of life, as Quran all the time it tells us. Contentment, contentment, and we are trying to feel like if we have a fun, it's like okay, it's like a happiness. Not at all. It's a very temporary feeling. To create complete, consistent dopamine, that's a goal. What we are getting throughout the prayers, throughout the different things, that's why if we will not take care of the little small things, it will become big, huge thing. And we should focus on that as it started. Not only with ourselves, with our kids, with the people around us, and we should give the other people that place what we want to take in our life. If we will think about the other people, definitely they will think about us. We need to create the community. mental health community. That then we can understand those problems, and if we will not take care of that, what's come to what's what you told, and least you will get not happiness, not contentment, if you mentally you have some issues.
Exactly. Adnan, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, sure. I would love to add. Yeah, I don't want to be biased because there are many avenues of being mentally healthy. Therapy is just one of them. I actually call it mental wealth because if you think of finances, if you think of job, if you think of career, you just don't want to get to the average or just there. You want to rise above and beyond. So it's not really mental health, it's mental wealth I see as the goal. So something to consider is how do I experience life right now? We relate in three ways: to ourselves, to others, and to the world. So, in those 3 points, what's your experience like? Are you satisfied with your experience? Are you mentally wealthy? Are you self actualized? And if not, therapy or anything else is an opportunity to look at that. When we don't address things, then sometimes psychological issues turn into medical ones. For example, they come out in different ways. And then what we end up doing is whatever life throws at us, we react to it, we distract ourselves, and then we call that our destiny. But that's not what it really is. Therapy and other ways of mental health is an opportunity to see that you have choice in your life and you can change that. You can empower yourself. You could change the way you see the world, the way you experience the world, the way you feel inside your body, the way you feel in between the spaces in your relationship. So it's really up to you on you evaluating because you are the expert of your own life. I always tell my patients that. So evaluating for yourself, am I content, like Dr. Simon said, with where I'm at? And if I'm not, then there's an opportunity to work on changing that. So that's how I see it.
Binish, we cannot hear you if you are speaking. Adnan, he's done.
Yeah.
We
I
can't
think
hear
maybe
you.
it's on mute.
Yeah, you are on mute.
Letting me
Binish.
unmute. Okay.
Oh,
Okay,
Oh,
good.
there we go.
I Yeah, I'm so sorry that we had to test this stream platform out on the one of the best topics I've ever thought, like ever spoken about. But inshallah, we're gonna have some better options after Ramadan. But yes, Rahila, would you like to chime in? And then at the end, I actually do want to touch base on those solutions too, Adnan, and how South Asians can actually approach those solutions with our lovely rules of decorum and whatnot that are often very unrealistic. Rahila, but would you like to chime in? Like, what are consequences that one can deal with if they do not seek out mental health?
Well, I hearing Adnan has said it's going to be hard, and what Dr. Simon has said, it's going to be a little challenge to make a comeback on their response. But I do have to say, mental health, if you don't see it, it could only get worse. Just like your friend, like the case that you shared with us, obviously like the worst case scenario. But if we don't take care of it, like cholesterol, like Dr. Simon has blood pressure, and if we don't take care of it, then obviously it's going to get worse. Unfortunately, with mental health, you don't see it. We cannot going on, and it's just eventually elaborates to your physical pain. It eventually elaborates your lifestyle. You have difficulty of running, life, to socialization, doing everyday tasks. It does affect your life. You don't realize it because you can't see it, but you only can feel it. and you can't show it. That's the challenge. That's one of the setbacks. And obviously, I agree with Adnan what he said. Therapy is one of the tools, is not the tool, but there's other avenues that we can take. We can provide support. There's so many avenues that you can seek help to address your mental health. Just like you see a doctor, you see a nurse practitioner, you see a psychiatrist, you see a professional, just like to seek your physical pain, we have other tools to address your mental health. I have to credit Adnan
Yes,
took
exactly.
all the words from my mouth.
Exactly. I agree 101%. All of you guys touch based upon the fact that, if we don't take care of our mental health care, it does affect us even like, yes, it for initially you won't see it, and no, none of your family and friends will see it. When they see it is when that iceberg has tipped over, when it's not only showing up in actions that you're taking, lack of socialization, and uh, like solicited anger or crying for a lot of people, or oversensitivity, as they say. I don't believe there's such thing as oversensitivity, just levels the way people feel things. But yeah, some people may deem us oversensitivity. And also physical like illnesses, like there's so many autoimmune diseases, you guys, that are relative to your mental health. Like stress actually causes them, besides high blood pressure and cholesterol. Actually, cholesterol can exist even if you leave the fittest of lifestyles, if you're not dealing with your stress properly. We already know that. That's common knowledge. But then autoimmune disease like hypothyroidism, which obviously has a genetic base, but it also gets triggered through stress. There's so many other things that can happen. Hives, some people get hives because they're stressed out or suffering from anxiety. There's so many things. There's cases of people developing speech impediment even. Can you imagine, due to mental duress? I mean, like, the fact that it can actually, express itself in a physical form should be, no, if not for the fact that we should take care of our mental health and our soul as well as spiritual health, but yes, our mental health as well. But the fact that it can express itself physically should get you to a therapist or a counselor right away. But obviously, there are situations where, as South Asians and as Muslims especially, we are reluctant to apply certain methods, like Adnan touched based upon certain solutions that you might offer, like, for example, certain solutions that people offer in the Western world, like setting boundaries, saying no's, things that are actually against the rules of decorum in South Asian society, or even in Muslim society. Like, they will say, well, this person doesn't have a clock, but all they're doing is keeping themselves reserved or setting a boundary. How do you apply such a solution to such an who is, suffering, like, who is going through, it's not a clock at all when you do this sort of thing? Let's start.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Actually, I missed a little point. Are you asking? Oh, Rahila, she's talking. Okay. Mhm.
Yes.
So
Yes.
boundaries, where I often say we don't have to use the word boundaries with your parents or your loved ones. And just, you have to go around. I always say, don't go through the front door, you have to go through the back door now. It's like limit, like use, don't disclose too much, limit your conversation, limit your meetings or your time availability with them. Don't respond right away. If somebody's texting you constantly, it's overwhelming. Do not respond back. Respond back 2 hours later, 3 hours. That's where you have to set boundaries too. We always talk about boundaries with others, but we never talk about boundaries with ourselves. You don't need to respond back, right? And one of the I always give my clients, control is, you are in control of your behavior, your action process. you cannot control the other person, but you can control yourself. So if somebody is crossing the boundary space, you need to react. You don't need to give them the time of the day and say, even as parents, you got to do it. Obviously, Islam respect parents. You do it in a way that you're still your parents, but you're setting limits on them too. And at the same time, you want to follow Islamically way, but you also want to apply where you're also healthy too. I'm always giving that control when you control and you're in control of your behavior and your action. So that's pretty much I use that in a day in sessions and everything.
Excellent. Uh, Adnan, has there ever been an application of some sort of behavioral modulation or anything that somebody might have qualms about applying due to their ethnicity, religion, or background? Like, have you ever had a patient that wouldn't apply whatever you're advising
Hmm.
them due to this reason?
Yeah, that's such a great question because I think advice is something that does come up in therapy. And what I find is I'm not really there to advise the person unless it's a high risk, very serious situation. That's a different bracket of crisis. But it's more so exploring, learning, understanding, guiding, and suggesting. And within that is me really learning about and understanding the person's story. Because what might work for me, what might work for someone else, may not work for that person. So it's really understanding what's happened in their lives, in their relationships, and what works and what doesn't work. I remember a patient I had, and she had a lot of love for her mom, and her mom used to get really angry and really critical. And I think that's an aspect of healing for her mom if she chooses to look at that. But she kept on receiving that angry, criticizing energy. And the Western way would say, hey, set boundaries, walk away or something, right? But that doesn't always work in a cultural upbringing or environment. So it's looking at what is available to her and what is she willing to do. So in her path was how can she show up with the most joy, the most delight, the most clarity, so that when her mom, responds to her in such a way, she doesn't get moved. She doesn't get so shaken up. So that's another example or another way. But it's really understanding the person and what they want to work towards. And that's kind of what I collaborate with.
Excellent. So on that note, Dr. Saima, like, has there been ever a situation where Adnan spoke of involving family members and like approaches and different approaches that you can employ with just telling, yes, maybe as you're my mother and I have to respect you, but this is the boundary and it's affecting my mental health, whatever. Has there ever been a situation where you had to actually reach out to a family member to, you spoke about marriage counseling especially, and you were told you don't know, or as they say, or for whatever reason they were against whatever you were saying to them, and any sort of situation, and how do you deal with such a situation where you have to reach out to the spouse, to the parent, to the aunt, whomever, or to the imam even, and how do you deal with such a situation when they are not willing to listen to you due to whatever their belief system is?
The problem is that, like, definitely I agree with what Adnan and Rahila said, that they already stole my all words. I don't have more than that, but anyhow, I will add in that. When the people they are coming and their belief system and the family belief system and the therapy belief system, everything is different. At that time, collaboration is very important. I need to understand that person, what that person is doing, what that person wants it. As the Adnan he was just telling, that it's important for for the people, concept, what they want to change in themselves. In therapy, 70% is the person, and 30% I told it's me as a therapist. But the most important thing is that person. And if that person has that issues of boundary setting, he has to set the boundary within himself or herself. As Rahila just said that, like all the time we take the boundaries with the other people. We never take a boundaries within ourselves. We cannot change other people. We can't. Even Allah doesn't change the people. Even prophets, they can't change the people. How we can change the people? And if we will go the Quran setting, and if we will go with the psychology, neuropsychology, we will see that only we can change ourselves. We cannot change the other people. If we want to create the boundaries, if the patient is coming and that person wants to create, and that person is ready to create the boundaries, just try to understand. Try to understand themselves and try to understand the other person, because people, they are in network. We cannot survive without the network. We can't. It's not possible. If I'm living in a Muslim community, Muslim family, and I will just think about myself, what are my needs? I have to collaborate everyone within that need. Create the boundaries within yourself, what you can and what you can't. You have to pick your own battles. Don't have like a complaint for everything. Just pick up your battles, and after that, and start working on that. I told my patient, if you will start, and if you will think, if you will decide to change one thing in your life, it will take 9 months. There's a lot of research on that. And it's like a kind of project. It's not like that something you just think and you can just apply it. Some people, they were asking me, oh, your kids are good, they pray, blah blah, those things. I say no, not at all. They are not good people, but I give them the habit to become a good person. If the people, they have a habit, to change the habit is very difficult. The creating the boundary is a habit, habitual stuff. First of all, change in yourself, pick your battles. Secondly, try to understand your atmosphere. And if you will try your atmosphere, try to go with that atmosphere, and take like a 9 months to year to change one or two things. And after that, give and take, and then you will create the homeostasis. That's my understanding.
Excellent. You touched upon a lot of good points. To summarize, my favorite one was it doesn't necessarily take just not like a medication that you would take. It's not like it's an ongoing process, and it's about changing habits. And changing habits can take years, and if sometimes lifetimes. And oftentimes, in that process, if it's like we're quickly not getting better, especially mentally, we're like, well, this is why am I doing this? Why am I talking to a therapist or a counselor? Like Rahila, I actually want to go back to you again about this topic. I know because you work with the local mosque. Has there been ever a situation where, and this is not one of our list of questions, but when somebody was in your care or was seeking counseling from you and stopped because of it not working? And again, you don't have to name names, but just in any instance, or how did you deal with that?
Um, in my case, at the market setting, I we all we start off to get um, limited sessions anyway to be small, short-term therapy in the habit of what mental health is all about. They stopped because the required therapy sessions has been. I've learned I don't take it personally. I don't professionally. It's sort of where they are, and I always say they're not ready yet. Not ready to take on the tools right now because it's a new thing. It's setting. It's adventure. I wouldn't adventure, but it's a new situation that they're in. I was taught that meet with is that they're then wherever they are psychologically and mentally, emotionally, we meet them. We're not ready to further seek. I always give them, if you're feeling unsafe, at the discharge or to leave, I always give them, there's resources. There are not there. There's crisis hotline. There's resources that you can reach out to, and therapists not be there for you, but there's other tools that you can use. You reach out to imam if you feel comfortable with a psychiatrist or a friend or loved one. In the beginning, we always talk about safety planning. that the safety planning includes friend servers, social support, the ecosystem, whoever their support is. I always remind them, utilize those support, and whoever they are, whatever they are, please utilize them, because at some point we all need support in our lives.
Mm.
Um, I actually love that. Like the if somebody is reluctant to see a counselor or a therapist, then you actually encourage them to see an imam, because at the end of the day, your goal is their safety, and honestly speaking, so that they know that there is a support system that is more comfortable per se to them, even if it's a friend or whomever, or family member, because essentially that's what mental health care is all about, right? Making sure that the person doesn't tip over, doesn't give up, and keeps on trying to survive whatever it is that they, feel is happening in terms of turmoil in their life. Um, so sadness, grief, anxiety, depressions, and psychology versus the Islamic faith, not versus. It's one, and is what I want to hone in to our audience today. You're sad, just because you're going through grief doesn't mean that you have a lack of imana. Just because you are seeking out mental, not mean that the same askar and prayers, and or your imam might have offered you, frankly speaking. To ask this question again to Rahila, definitely answer that, Doctor, about seeking out imam, an imam or religious, mental illness rather, or personal challenges. What do you think?
Yeah, I believe in collaborative approach. I also work with the mosques and ICPC. I'm involved, and I was involved ICNA for a long time. I feel like the collaboration is very important because people they believe in imams, and I believe in imams too, because they are dealing on the different. They have experience, though they don't have that education, but we have it. But if we have a collaborative approach rather than replacing, I feel like that it's more like a beneficial if the imam and the psychologist, the therapist, and the social worker, if we can deal the problems together, I feel like that you will get a better results. It's not like an iman because again, some people don't like to say disease. I don't like to say disease, but if we will have something, we have to take the opinion of the other people, and especially faith is a very big part of counseling. I use like a 25% of my treatment plans is spirituality. And it doesn't matter which faith you belong, but whatever the faith you belong, because we have to believe unseen. Definitely, there are so many things which we cannot see it. And that's why it's very important that there need to be collaboration. And people, they have so much trust on imams. And if we will try to replace it, we can't. And it's not possible again. Secondly, whenever, whatever we can teach as like for this a panel discussion. If we have in this panel discussion, some of the imams, they can like we can have this type of conversation. It can help the people to understand that imams and we are on the same page. And if we are on the same page, definitely we will help. Right now, yeah, yeah, years back it was little difficult because I think I'm the oldest one from all of those you people, and years back, it was very difficult to intervene the imam and tell them that this is a problem. But right now, all the mosques, they are talking about that. They are very willing. We have Sheikh Usama, Imam Katnani. They are very, very willing and they're talking to me. When the problem comes, they all the time discuss with me and we collaborate and we resolve the issues. And Alhamdulillah, it's working very well.
Excellent. And I agree. It's a prevalent issue, especially post pandemic. There's been so many cases of mental health duress, that if I actually was reading a study, it's actually 6 times more people after the pandemic are affected by some sort of mental duress, and it's not. Some might cite labeling or oversensitivity. It's actual clinical depression and clinically diagnosed anxiety that they are going through. And it's great that the imams and the religious scholars are involved as well. And by the way, all my research, it was the imams and the religious scholars that I got that information from. So it's definitely a conversation that is happening in what I'd like to say, the more religious, intellectual circles. contrary to what is common belief, the religious scholars and the imams also believe in seeking out mental health care when you need it. Adnan, do you have anything to add to that on that same note?
Yeah, sure. Um, I think it's what works for the person, and it's also important for me as a provider to know my own biases, my own values, and how that might affect the person. Because a good therapist is one that is unbiased relatively more often than being more biased, in my opinion. So I have to see that this is an individual, and it's my job to learn how is religion even played in their life? Because there are Muslims that I see that are very religious. There's also Muslims that I see that consider themselves as Muslims, and they are, but they're not as very religious. So it is nuanced, and it's important for me to see what may work for the person. It might not be exactly what I think works best for that person. So sometimes it's more about the imam, sometimes more therapy, sometimes it's both. But I think a lot of what I want to do is ask questions and keep on asking questions to get to learn them so that I can find the best ways of supporting them.
Excellent. I love that each of you are receptive to not only an individual's faith and how long or what qualms they might have about seeking out mental health care, but you also actually devise strategies specific to each individual. And I'm sure that that is the case of every mental health practitioner out there. Am I right in that assumption?
I would say a good therapist is
Can
one
chime
that
in.
sees the individual. I'm not sure that every therapist sees it as that, but I think the strong therapist sees it. We call it person centered or client centered, and most of us are educated in that.
Vinesh, you are again gone. We can't hear you.
Maybe it froze.
Yeah, I think she froze. Vinesh, you look so pretty, but froze.
Oh, there we go. Come back to us.
Okay, am I back? Am I
Okay.
back?
Yes, you're back. You're back. Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Now I'm going to write that a hefty review to what live with one stream. But going back to what I was saying, before I begin my conclusion, I would like to first and foremost thank you guys all for joining us today, especially Rahila. I'm so sorry, for I know she has a huge iftar that she's planning tonight. So thank you for joining us and giving us your very valuable time. And of course, Dr. Saima and also Adnan, you all three are amazing individuals, and I hope and pray that our audience out there has learned something and learns to accept not only the things that make them that so-called perfect Muslim or whatever perfection that they think is, but also the deficiencies, and especially with Ramadan, because in Ramadan we're supposed to be insightful, see what needs improvement. And it's not only just about spiritual health and even physical health, although pakoras and whatnot, but also it is also about your mental health. And if there is a time that we should be insightful and we should look within and see what is happening in terms of how we cope with stress and crisis in our life, it's certainly Ramadan, is it not? Okay, so again, I apologize in advance for the bad Arabic pronunciation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Tadabaw ibadullah, translates, seek out treatments, O servants of Allah. And therapists or counselors are those people who can not only devise a treatment, but they can give you strategies or tips to combat mental duress, distress, any sort of post traumatic stress, anxiety, depression, and grief. Allah Ta'ala says, فَأَسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ ذِكْرِكَ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you do not know. And in fact, These are the people of knowledge. You met three of those amazing individuals today who can help with this exact ailment, as they've dedicated their entire life to studying and devising techniques to help their patients. Abu Hamid al Ghazali wrote about the importance of psycho spiritual health and its relation to our connection with Allah. In his Ilya Ulum al Din, he said, when God wishes well for a servant, he gives him awareness of his own deficiencies. From this statement, we learn that the beginning of achieving mental and physical health is self awareness or inkishaf. After a person develops self awareness of their habits, practitioners may facilitate holistic health by working on the different aspects of the mind towards creating psycho, physical, and spiritual balance. And on this path towards balance, one can and will make that same iman stronger, as Allah is truly Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the most merciful, the most compassionate. And yakallafu ala nafsan ila was'aha. Allah does not burden a soul beyond that it can bear. Ma anzalallahu min da'a ilja'la la da'wa. God has not created any pain or disease, physical, mental, spiritual, except that He has also created a cure. So, on that note, be well, be wise, be introspective. Assalamu
I
alaikum. Happy
want
Ramadan to all.
I
Yes, go ahead.
to invite us. You did not invite us. Rahila is going to invite. We can go with the family to this place.
Sure. Okay. All right. All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. All right.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome.